You know who works and who had it all going tonight? Nikola Jokic brings the Denver Nuggets a huge win to even their series against the Clippers at 2 games apiece. This is coming off of a blowout loss in game 3. What was so different for Denver this time around? How did they get this win?
Well, I want to start with the ending sequence, and if you have not seen the ending of this game yet, you really have to. I mean, this was honestly one of the best playoff games I've ever watched in my life. Like, this was so entertaining. But Norman Powell hits these 2 back-to-back huge corner threes to close the gap to a point. The Clippers go on a 30-11 to run and a 10-0 run in the fourth. They also go 10-0 on points off turnovers in the fourth quarter. This is a Clippers team. You're talking about deficits. They wiped away a 22-point deficit to take the lead in the final minute in this game. Ultimately, some crazy stuff happens. Bogdanovic strips Jokic off of a rebound to get a putback. Jokic goes 1 of 2 from the line to just tie the game up. Harden smokes a layup. Zubac tips it back in to tie the game up. And then Aaron Gordon dude, it doesn't get any closer than that. That's what was also ridiculous about this.
You skipped over the insane Jokic shot.
Oh, I did forget about that. Yeah, Jokic hits a shot over. That was insane, bro. He spun ridiculous. Like 3 times in a row on the right block to get that one off. Like, crazy, crazy sequence. The difference in this game to me, one, Jokic is just unbelievable. Like, Jokic is the best player on the planet still. Dominates in every facet that Jokic always dominates. It feels like we can become numb to this sort of thing. I just glossed over that shot. It's like, damn, man. Jokic hit so many in the game. Jokic is dotting up so many people. You can kind of take it for granted. But Jokic, another dominant performance. The biggest difference in this game to me from previous ones was just Denver's defense and intensity, man. Like, Denver came out with a certain ferocity that I've been waiting to see from them in this series. And you got it. And they also overcame, I thought, a really horrid Jamal Murray game. Jamal was better in the fourth quarter, and I'm glad he got it going in the fourth, but he's got some ugly moments in this game. He was really bad for the first 3 quarters, but I thought the game plan was really smart. I thought the Denver defense was really great. I thought the rebounding was elite. And the scheme that they played, like, they kept doubling off of Chris Dunn, and that was something that I mentioned in the first 2 games in this series that I thought the Clippers may need to turn away from Dunn in certain minutes just because of how limited he was offensively and how he could ruin some of the advantages that the Clippers created. And I thought that was a huge component, that they were able to kind of exploit that on defense. But much better defense and rebounding and effort from Denver. And when you can get those categories going and you have the best offensive player on the planet, you can win some games. But really surprising they were able to do this with such a lackluster game from Jamal Murray, man. That's not something that traditionally Denver can withstand. But really good Jokic game, really great defensive performance. I was scared, man. Denver, I'm not going to lie. Like, I root for Denver just because I am such a big Jokic fanboy. I thought they were going to let the Clippers get this one, man. I thought the Clippers were going to come back and win this one.
2 20-plus point comebacks within a few days. Obviously, 2 separate series, but OKC come back from 29. And then if the Clippers had fully come back from 22 down, that would have been crazy. And they very nearly did it. But in spite of the fact that the Nuggets definitely struggled down the stretch, and I do want to unpack why that happened, Jokic was out of this world in this game. He was just phenomenal. And the biggest thing was just his aggression throughout this game, because that's what I've really been talking about throughout this series with him. Like, he has to be so utterly dominant. His volume has to be crazy in this series. And he has to either punish them as a scorer for leaving him in single coverage with anybody, even if it's Zoo, who guards him better than basically anybody else on the planet. Or obviously, if they're going to send 2, then you're going to create an open shot for a teammate and you just have to trust them to knock him down. But he was really, really going as a scorer in this one. I've been waiting for this sort of game from Jokic where he gives you 35 plus points. Got a couple easy ones in transition early, got a easy little cleanup on the offensive glass. but then he was really cooking in single coverage. He had a couple of phenomenal takes against Zoo, a couple of great buckets on him, but also what I loved the most and what's been the most frustrating part about Jokic's series before this game to me was in games 1 through 3, he really wasn't very aggressive as a scorer against the small ball units when Zoo was off the floor. That very much changed in this one. He was going at Ben Simmons. He was going at any switches he could get in that lineup. Ben Simmons has played a good defensive series, but still, Jokic has a huge physical advantage in that matchup. So I loved him attacking those groups. And then I like how the Nuggets were getting him out and moving in space. He was coming around a lot of screens in this game. He was great as a jump shooter. He got a couple of really nice cuts to the basket. So I really loved the balance from him as a scorer. I loved the aggression. It was all clicking. And then he was also great as a passer, like just a couple moments of manipulating defenders masterfully with his eyes, and he's freeing up somebody off a cut. So 36, 21, and 8 he gives you in this one. That's basically what they need from him every night. Like, realistically, they need him to be utterly dominant in this series. He hadn't fully dialed up the aggression in games 1 through 3. He does in this one, and it helps them get over the hump. It's one of the best performances we've seen from any player in the playoffs so far. All that being said, they did very nearly blow this game, and the biggest reason for that was two-sided, honestly. They couldn't score and they couldn't get stops for about 10 minutes of this game, but their offense was really confounded by the zone that the Clippers threw at them. They first implemented that zone with 10 and a half minutes left in the fourth quarter. Denver was up 20, and then the Clippers started mixing in heavy doses of the zone. They held Denver to 9 points in the next 9.5 minutes. I thought there were a number of missteps that Denver had in how they approached the zone. First thing, didn't get Jokic the ball in the middle nearly enough. That is where you have to attack a zone from, right? You have to try to get Jokic the ball at the nail. And when you can get him the ball at the nail, he's phenomenal because he's the best touch shot maker ever. And he's such a phenomenal decision maker, processor, passer. He can dissect the zone most effectively from that area. And they only really got him the ball there a couple times. Part of that is also on him. He was roaming out on the perimeter more so than he was really trying to occupy that space. Also, I thought everybody around him was too stagnant off ball. You have to move against a zone. You have to attack the open space. You have to be cutting. You have to be spaced properly. And they just weren't really. And so they ended up settling for a number of these like meh above the break threes that are like quote unquote open, but not the sort of looks that you should be getting against the zone. And I also thought they were just very, very slow getting into their offense. They kind of got in that mode that Denver gets in sometimes because Jokic is such a fiend for eating up clock. Obviously, does the whole thing of taking up time out of bounds and then rolling the ball on the ground before the shot clock starts and all that stuff. And like they were just getting into their offense kind of late, which makes you easier to guard and is going to force you to settle for some tougher shots. And then on top of some bad process against the zone and just some bad shooting, Jamal and Aaron Gordon both had a couple of ugly turnovers against ball pressure, which the Clippers really dialed up in that fourth quarter. And then you have Jokic getting called for the offensive foul on Zoo. So like they weren't getting good shots. They were missing the decent shots they were getting, and they were turning the ball over a lot. And then defensively, they could not guard the Clippers, which is another problem. But that was very nearly a disaster for Denver because of how much they struggled against the zone. If I'm Ty Lue, I would mix that look in again in a spot where I feel like I need it in game 5 because it was so effective. However, although I think they're a good team to execute it, and it's smart to test the Nuggets outside shooting, and Zoo is just a really difficult guy to score over, holding down the paint in the middle of that zone. Like it felt so different from, if you remember in the finals a couple years ago, when the Heat tried a zone look against the Nuggets and Jokic just absolutely obliterated it because it's so easy for him to get his touch shots over Bam. That's not the case with Zoo because he's such a massive human being. But still, I think if they attack the zone with more composure, if they get Jokic the ball in the middle more, if they move more effectively around him, the Nuggets should be fine against it. Like, I just think Jokic is probably the hardest player to play zone against in NBA history, because a big who can pick you apart from the nail like that, that's so valuable against zone. But at the same time, the guys around him are inconsistent shooters, so I can see the value in that. And obviously, with how much Denver struggled, it makes sense to at least try it again at some point.
Well, I would just switch up the defensive coverages like they did, just because I don't think it allows Denver to get really super comfortable, as uncomfortable as you can make Denver in general.
Well, they were uncomfortable for that 10-minute stretch, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think it worked. I mean, Aaron Gordon talked about it in the post game afterwards. Like, some of it was sloppy Denver play, but it was really the different looks that the Clippers threw at them. The one thing I'm worried about the Clippers moving forward in this series is really those non-Zubats minutes. Like, if the Nuggets can paint them in a corner and they can get a big stretch of minutes where they're running small against Jokic, I think Jokic is going to destroy them every single time. He gives you 16 third quarter points, and that's when Denver really builds up that lead. So to me, the rest of the series, that's a big key that I'm looking at. I know that you had talked about it in the first two games. That was an area that Jokic needed to be better in. And it's a double-edged sword, right? It's like, it's non-Zubats minutes when Jokic is on the floor, and ironically for the Nuggets is, can they survive minutes period when Jokic isn't on the floor? But
yeah,
I think that's an area that Denver can exploit and reliably win in those minutes, because the Clippers don't have a good bench option for Jokic. He's going to go through Batum. He's going to go through Ben Simmons. Like, he should cook all of those lineups and all of those minutes without Zoo on the floor when he is on the floor.
Totally agreed. Huge opportunity. This was the first game that they really tapped into that, and I thought that that was big. I do want to give credit to the guys around Jokic stepping up and making plays, though. Aaron Gordon makes maybe the play of his career to win the game. I mean, just absolutely huge from him, and he had a pretty good game overall. He was active on the offensive glass. I thought that he was efficient as a scorer. He draws some fouls, attacking mismatches, so he was pretty good. The huge performance to me in this one is Michael Porter Jr.'s. Just seeing that he's capable of shooting at that level was really big, because obviously sprains his AC joint. They keep saying on the broadcast, normally you miss 4 to 6 weeks. He's playing. He's in serious pain. He can't make a shot in game 3. And then post game, he says, I'm playing at like 20 to 30%. So I was like, if MPJ is cooked, I don't see how Denver wins this series, because they just don't have the depth. And then obviously Russ also misses this game. But seeing him shoot this well from deep, give you an efficient 17, that was a big deal. And I also thought that Christian Braun played pretty well in this one. There were a couple moments against the zone where I didn't think that he specifically was spaced properly. There was one time where Jokic tried to find him in the corner, and instead he was on the wing. There was the turnover where it looks like Jamal is throwing it away, but he's thinking that Christian Braun is going to stay on that wing where he had space, and instead he kind of forces a cut. So couple of mental errors there, but very active on the offensive glass, cutting pretty well overall, moving the ball pretty well, pretty darn good defensively. I would say this was his best performance on that side of the ball. Didn't shoot well from deep, but overall, like, I thought that 4 of the 5 starters for Denver played really well in this game, and they needed everything that they could get from their starters, especially with Russ out, because all of these dudes played 42 plus minutes. So, like, you need everything you can get out of them, and if you're going to survive an off Jamal game, then you need it even more so. And they just got enough. Everybody else's contributions were able to overcome Jamal really struggling. And I'm seeing a lot of people ragging on Jamal in the chat. This was a bad game from him, but he had been pretty good in games 1 through 3. Not remarkable, but
I mean, he's got to be
pretty good.
He's definitely got to step up the rest of the way. Nuggets aren't going to be able to get this done without him.
No, for sure. I mean, he has to be way better in this one. This was a bad performance from him. I thought the biggest key for the Nuggets defensively was exactly what you mentioned briefly, Logan, and something that you touched on as being a concern after game 1, something we touched on as being a concern for the Clippers a few times previewing this series. We talked about it when we were ranking them as a contender, and that is the Chris Dunn dilemma, where this dude is one of the best perimeter defenders, one of the best guard defenders on the planet, but you are going to test him as a shooter. And Denver was most aggressive doing so in this game. We've seen them roam off of him in stretches throughout this series, but this game from the opening possession, they were ignoring him. And he shot 1 of 9 from the field. So when you have an extra help defender parked in the paint, or when you can send a double with impunity on any offensive possession, like that is absolutely destructive to a team's offense. And I thought that was the thing bogging down the Clippers offense, because the second they got him off the floor, the Nuggets couldn't stop them, dude. They were minus 12 in Dunn's minutes in this game. They were plus 22 with Bogey on the floor.
That's what I've wondered, man, with the skill that these Clippers players have, man. If you were trotting out Norm and Bogey and they're hitting, it's like, I get that your defense is taking a bit of a slight hit, right? But you should still be all right with Kawhi.
Bogey was defended today, bro.
Bogey's a gamer. I love Bogdan, man. He's one of my favorite role players in the league, dude. I just like the energy and the fire
yeah.
Bogey's kind of crazy. Bogey's a little bit
he is
nuts,
for sure.
I really like
he's
that.
He's a psycho, bro. He hit the 3 to the dome and stared down Melo in the Olympics. He's a crazy person for sure.
Yes. That's kind of why I like Bogey.
But he fought his ass off. What I would say is you feel it out on a game-by-game basis. Like, is Chris Dunn making shots? Phenomenal. We're going to play him 30-plus minutes because he's our best perimeter defender. Is Chris Dunn not making shots? Okay, we're going to have to sacrifice a little something there to get Batum in, who is still a real plus defensively, not as great specifically when it comes to defending guards as like Chris Dunn is. But Nick Batum is just such a great shooter. Or like if Bogey is as capable defensively as he was in this one, then yeah, you can close with him. So I don't think it's like a condemn Chris Dunn, go away from him. They just should have gone away from him in this game because he was being that bad offensively. And honestly, if they made that switch sooner, I think they would have won this game because like I said, the Nuggets were able to involve an extra helper on every offensive play. So you are clogging up every Kawhi and Harden drive, and you're mucking up any potential passes to Zoo, and just like you're making everything hard on them. Down the stretch, they're not capable of guarding Harden Zoo pick and roll 2-on-2. They have to involve an extra defender, and then you are bleeding wide open catch and shoot threes now to Norman Powell. It's not Chris Dunn you're helping off of. It's one of the best shooters in basketball. Or Harden is just getting by these dudes in isolation at will down the stretch of this game. And he's finding Norman Powell over and over again. Or he'd find Zoo, who would find Powell. Like, the Nuggets' only stop in the last 7 minutes of this game, Logan, their only stop was Kawhi Leonard missing an open 3. Winning a basketball game when you get one stop in 7 minutes and it's not even a good defensive possession, that's absolutely remarkable. But I do think that that's a concern for Denver going forward. It's a big concern because if you're Ty Lue, I just think you'll be more flexible and you'll say, okay, we'll try Derrick Jones Jr. They'll guard him the same way. Maybe he'll shoot a little better. If not, then we'll go Batum, then we'll go Bogey. We'll find the guy who isn't going to impede our offense, and that guy is available because the Clippers just have really good depth. They have a lot of different dudes you can plug and play on any given night. And I'd be worried about that if I'm the Nuggets, how much they struggled down the stretch defensively once the Clippers got like a major minus offensively in this game off the floor.
Well, I mean, that's been my big concern about Denver in this series all along.
Of course.
How they can defend Kawhi, how they can defend Harden,
the
shooting. Like, Clippers are a damn good basketball team, man.
They are.
I feel like they let them off the hook in this one, though, man. Denver needed this one, though, and that's the one final area that I want to hit on is that this is a backs against the wall, especially when you lose the way that the Nuggets did when Jokic had his off night and they were so close. Like, you desperately needed to win this game. You couldn't drop it, and it's the biggest win I think in the playoffs so far for any team. Like, they desperately needed this victory.
I think that the two most significant wins were the two games that we saw in this afternoon evening slate. I mean, I thought that was huge for the Warriors, and it was absolutely huge for the Nuggets. I still think it's just harder for the Nuggets to win games in this series. I think that they need Jokic to be a god, and they need their supporting cast to be as good as they were tonight. And obviously, you need Jamal to be better going forward if they want to win. And I just think it's a little bit harder for them to slow down the Clippers offense still. What I will say from this game, Logan, is we got the series back in GOAT first round series talks, because 3 of 4 games now have just been absolute cinema. Game 3 was rough. It was not a good basketball game, not a good watch. And so the talks had to die down. We're back, baby. This has been my favorite series to watch overall, and I hope we get 7 games of it. And I think we probably will. If I had to make a bet, I do think the Clippers are the better team, but it is pretty darn close.